Namane. Namaste Saraswatundeve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Siddharane. Welcome. Looks like a few more devotees are joining. We'll wait one more minute. Radha Govind, if everyone can just put their devotional name instead of their other name. If you have an initiated name, you can put that. I don't think anyone is called iPhone. Does everyone know how to change their name? Natala. That's good. Okay. Today I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita 9.3. Well, let's offer our obeisances again for those who have come. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale
Sri
Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Vishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Siddharane. If everyone could, if it's possible, put on your video. If it's not possible, if your internet connection is not very good, then that's okay. I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 3. I'm sure I've read this before, or at least I read it in Spanish. We've gone over this verse. But I think it's a very important verse, just to get some more clarification. Sometimes Prabhupada gave lectures more than once. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was traveling all the time. So he gave Bhagavad Gita 7.1, maybe 15 to 20 times. He never tired of it. I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada went over the first verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam for a whole month at Radhakund. Janmadasya yatha yatom vayat itaratash tateshva bhagat svarat. Therefore, I think it's worthwhile to go over this verse again. The purport's rather long, but we'll go over it slowly. Ashvadadana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot obtain me. O conqueror of enemies, therefore they return to the birth and death in this material world. In the previous two verses, this verse, of course, comes in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 sections, or can be divided into 3 sections. Of course, when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield Kurukshetra, he probably didn't tell Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, now I'm going to speak to you first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And then if you're still awake, I'll speak to you the next 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters. And finally, if we have enough time, I'll speak the last 6 chapters. But since Krishna has been speaking Bhagavad Gita since time immemorial, he pretty much is quite expert. He knows what he's doing. Therefore, the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita may be considered, or as Prabhupada states in a purport, the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita deal with the different kinds of yogas, which help elevate one to the point of self-realization. The middle 6 chapters deal with pure devotional service, and the last 6 chapters deal with Jnana Yoga, the process by which one can become fixed in devotional service by understanding it clearly. The devotional service, of course, is not just sentimental, but the background is knowledge and detachment, of which the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita deal with. This particular verse comes after Krishna had said to Arjuna that this is the most confidential knowledge that he'll reveal to him, mainly because Arjuna is not envious of Krishna. So if there's any problem we have, or any block we have in our relation with Krishna, is basically due to envy. Whether we're aware of it or not. Of course, if we're envious of anyone, then it's a good sign we'd probably be envious of Krishna. If we are envious because someone has more money than we have, more power than we have, more influence than we have, more knowledge than we have, more beauty than we have, more strength than we have, anyone, then what to speak of in comparison to Krishna? How much beauty, how much strength, how much knowledge, how much renunciation, how much opulence Krishna has. Therefore, Krishna says preliminarily, he's speaking to Arjuna because Arjuna is not envious. And then Krishna glorifies in the second verse the wonderful qualities of pure devotional service. That what he's going to explain to Arjuna, Raja Vidya is the king of knowledge, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, it's the most confidential knowledge. Pavitram idam uttamam, and it's the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, is everlasting and is joyfully performed. Keeping that in mind, Krishna is talking about faithful. Now, faith has different meanings in different languages and different connotations in different cultures. But basically speaking, as Krishna writes in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that as he was recommended, or he was asked to recommend an edition of the Bhagavad Gita in English by an American lady. Now, Prabhupada mentions that the Bhagavad Gita, known also as the Gita Upanishad, is the summary of all the Vedic literature and the most important of all the Upanishads, the essence of all Vedic literature. Now, Prabhupada said he couldn't recommend an edition of the Bhagavad Gita because, practically speaking, every edition that he knew of the 600 or whatever editions there were at that time, both in America and in India, didn't really touch on the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita. The spirit of the Bhagavad Gita is, as Prabhupada mentions, is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. It was not a psychological treatise meant to free Arjuna for fear of dying on the battlefield. nor was it a medical consultation between Krishna as an expert Ayurvedic doctor telling Arjuna how to cure wounds that he might occur on the battlefield. There's only one purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, namely, so that we can understand and realize our relationship with Krishna, that He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that we have an eternal relationship with Him. Originally, it's an unlimited, loving relationship with Krishna, but now it's become something else. So Krishna is trying to awaken us scientifically to the knowledge by which we can act in this material world with whatever assets we presently have, and reawaken our relation with Him gradually, even in this lifetime. So Prabhupada says that when Bhagavad Gita was spoken to by Arjuna to Krishna, then it's understood that whatever Krishna said, if He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, would be perfect. If it's not perfect, then Krishna does not have perfect knowledge. And if He doesn't have perfect knowledge, then how can He be the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Therefore, the knowledge must come down in a chain of disciple succession. The same understanding that, as Prabhupada writes, that Madhvacharya had, that Ramanujacharya had, that Sankaracharya had, that later on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had. The same knowledge that's found in the Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and scientifically explains that fact. It's not a sentimental treatise where one blindly follows the knowledge that Krishna is God. On the other hand, Prabhupada writes, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that Bhagavad Gita is best understood by a devotee, or at least we can say an aspiring devotee. Krishna spoke in the fourth chapter to Arjuna that this knowledge comes in a disciple succession, and then he says, Sa evaya maya tedya yogo prakta paratana bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam hi uttama. Sa evaya maya tedya yogo prakta parata. Now, Krishna is going to explain this ancient science to Arjuna because he's bhaktosi me sakacheti. He's both a friend to Krishna and he's a devotee. He has Krishna's interest at heart, and he's willing to do something on the basis of that interest. He's not simply a friend which says, I appreciate what you're saying, Krishna, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really willing to do everything for you. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was a little concerned. He took Arjuna to be a friend and a possible devotee, but he wanted to inquire from Arjuna, are you really my friend? Are you really my devotee? Now, I've been explaining the Bhagavad Gita to you because I wanted you to know that it is the reason why I'm here in the material world is to protect devotees, annihilate miscreants, and reestablish religious principles, of which I think this battlefield is very important because Duryodhana is a demon. He doesn't understand the essence of knowledge. The essence of knowledge, as Krishna had explained, is to surrender to him. Duryodhana did not want to surrender to Krishna. He thought Krishna was an ordinary person. He even tried to imprison Krishna. He tried to kill his devotees, not the symptom of pure devotional service. So Krishna was a little concerned. I've spent my time speaking Bhagavad Gita to you. I know your eyes have been opened, but I'm not really so sure if you've really been awake the whole time. After all, when we hear philosophy, most people fall asleep. And of course, when there's a battle about to take place, your mind may have been in some other place. But Arjuna, so Krishna said, Kachit etachitam bharata, tvaya kagrena chetasa, Kachit agana samoha, pranataste dhananjaya. My dear Arjuna, I've been telling you this knowledge, Kachit etachitam bharata, tvaya kagrena chetasa. But have you actually been listening? Or you only got half the knowledge and half of it you were dreaming or sharpening your weapon or wondering where the nearest escape route would be in case things didn't go well. And not only that, although you may have heard Bhagavad Gita, have you actually understood it in such a way that three illusions were dispelled? He said, three moha. What are the illusions that we have? One is, no matter how sincere we are, and how much we pay attention, our bodily identification does not go away so easily. And our mental anxieties do not go away so easily. The next illusion is that we forget or we're not aware of that Krishna is personally with each one of us, trying to guide us back to the spiritual world, rather than simply providing us with the means by which we can live peacefully and happily in the material world, or if we're in the mode of ignorance, how to act whimsically and create problems for ourselves and everyone else. Krishna is perfectly willing either help us act in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, the mode of goodness, or to go back to the spiritual world. That's our choice. So to become aware of the Paramatma, it is not that we have no guide and we're just helpless. The guide is there as Paramatma if we actually want his help, which means we have to know what to ask for. And the other thing is that the goal of life is to revive our relation with Krishna. We have Gajendra. He had a very big problem with his foot. Crocodile was biting on it for some thousands of years, and therefore he took shelter of Krishna. Now, what the end of the story of Gajendra is, we can only imagine that he did become he revived his pure devotional attitude towards Krishna. Dhruva Maharaj wanted a kingdom greater than that of his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. And we understand that by seeing Vishnu, he realized that there's any other goal other than loving service to Krishna was like some broken pieces of glass. The sages of Naimisharanya, they heard from Sutta Goswami, and they became convinced that the path of perfection was Krishna consciousness and pure devotional service. And the four Kumaras, as we know, they went to Vaikuntha, although they were impersonalists, and there they met Lord Narayan, and after smelling the tulsi leaves and the sandalwood paste, they took up the process of pure devotional service. So one can approach Krishna and even be convinced that he's God, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one will want pure devotional service, which is the other illusion, that something is more greater, something is more enjoyable, some other goal that we might have is more beneficial than simply to become a pure devotee of Krishna and his devotees. Gopi Bharata Parakamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. The perfection is not only becoming a devotee of Krishna, but also becoming a devotee of Krishna's devotees. Now, this is called faith. As Krishna says, Shravan labhate jnanam tatpara samitendriya jnana labha param shantim atrena digachiti. A faithful person who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. In other words, Krishna has praised the knowledge we get from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. It is not that this knowledge is different from reality. By absorbing ourselves in this knowledge and the process of obtaining it, then one enters into the platform of reality. That's called Krishna consciousness. There's not some separate consciousness called Krishna consciousness and other consciousness called reality. They're both the same. And Sharaval Levite Jnanam, that one faithful person is a person who believes that by chanting Hare Krishna and following the process, that one will come to the highest platform of existence, of experience, of reality. Now, we may not be there, but it's understood that if we follow the process sincerely means to actually be understanding what the process is and following it, then gradually we'll make some progress, which means we'll gain some experience of what Krishna consciousness is all about. That it's not simply a theoretical science, it's supposed to be an experience. That experience will depend upon how much we're able to perform with our body the activities of sadhana bhakti, and how much with our minds we can absorb our consciousness in Krishna, and how much we can see things in relationship to Krishna. Now, there may be different degrees of that, but even a little progress in devotional service can inspire us to continue on with the process until we reach the goal. Of course, at every step, Maya will offer us something, freedom from our anxieties and pains that will motivate us, some idea of how to live more comfortably in the material world, how to understand, how to answer all the questions we may have about ourselves and the universe, and how to deal with others, and how to become free from all pains and miseries by even understanding our position as eternal identity, that we actually have. We are a spiritual being, and we do live eternally, and there's no need to worry simply about birth and death, old age and disease, but there is a worry about where we're going next, which body we're going to get. So some faith in the process of devotional service. Shara Shabde Vishwasakari Suridan Ischai Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarva Karma Krita Hai. That faith in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is defined as Shara Shabde, firm faith. That simply by executing devotional service, one will get all benefit. Now, here in this particular verse, as I mentioned before, this verse deals with what's known as faith to bring us to liberation. Now, because we're not liberated from the material bodily concept of life, when we chant Hare Krishna, we have so many things to think about other than Krishna. The material world may not be our home. It may not be reality in terms of what we think it is. It has its reality, but the reality is that it puts us in illusion. But because we're attached to the illusion, therefore, we don't necessarily take so seriously the fact that we should get out of illusion. there is enjoyment in imagining ourselves to be the controllers, independent controllers. There is some enjoyment imagining ourselves that we're the enjoyers. The whole material world is based on the endless varieties of enjoyment of which modern society is advertising unlimited numbers of enjoyment. Of course, the enjoyments always culminate in the same eating, sleeping, mating, defending, but these things have some aspect of enjoyment. They may, whatever they may result in, still there's some satisfaction within them. But they're not eternal, and they don't give us complete satisfaction. But we're attached to them because we've been, for the most part, trying to enjoy them since time immemorial. And they're not very easily given up unless we get a higher taste. In other words, unless we experience what Krishna consciousness is like, unless we experience Krishna's presence when we chant Hare Krishna, unless we remember Krishna, what his forms are, and his associates, and gradually their pastimes, etc., then the subtle desires within our mind and the gross desires within our mind will not go away. They'll simply haunt us. And that haunting us means that we won't be able to hear this about Krishna consciousness. We won't become convinced that the chanting Hare Krishna can give us all, can actually give us experience. So we have to at least gain some faith in the process. So that's what this verse is talking about. Now, to give a summary of the verse before the purport before I read it, basically speaking, we have to become convinced that this Bhagavad Gita is not an ordinary book. It's not just something that we can read once in a while and it's perfectly fine. No, it's actually reality within Bhagavad Gita. And if we pay attention to it and we follow it, then we'll enter into eternal bliss and knowledge with Krishna and all his devotees. And if we don't, then we may have different levels of faith in Krishna. Different levels of faith in what the goal of life is. Different levels of faith which lead us to different types of activities. On the lowest level are the Kanista Adhikaris. Kanista, Madhyam, Uttama are not absolute terms. In Sanskrit, Kanista means the beginning. Madhyam means intermediate. And Uttama means perfection. If you want to learn how to play golf, for instance, which I don't recommend, but if you want to learn how to play golf, at the beginning, you just take the golf club and you swing it and try to hit the ball. That's called Kanista, golf player. If you hit the ball, it's called Madhyama. And if the ball goes into a hole eventually, that's called Uttama. Similarly, by faith, one may be a beginner. And that beginning is not how much prasadam we can eat or how many times we go to the program. That beginning is that we don't, when someone asks us a question or we ask ourselves a question, we don't know what to refer to in order to give the answer. And even if we believe that there's something in the books that could give the answer to my problems, we don't necessarily take it very seriously. We may go to a self-help book or ask some guru on Google, on the internet, Google guru, but we don't necessarily believe that our answers for our real problems are there in the Bhagavad Gita. Because if you have a toothache, we don't expect you to go to the Bhagavad Gita and necessarily find out where the best dentist is. That's not what the Bhagavad Gita is meant for. It will solve the toothache if one absorbs one's consciousness in Krishna. But most of us is probably better off going to the dentist first, and because we may not be so expert in overcoming it. And besides that, this is Krishna's body. So our meditation at this particular stage, even if it's on Krishna, we should also take care of Krishna's body. And we want to find out where the best dentist is, that there are experts or means of doing it, which are probably quicker than reading Bhagavad Gita. On the other hand, if we want to solve our actual problems, our most significant problems of old age, disease, and death, and realize our eternal nature, Bhagavad Gita is very helpful for that. After all, what sane person could deny the fact that our bodies are changing and that we ourselves are not changing? If someone doesn't understand that their body is changing, there's really no need to tell them anything else. It's probably best to give them some prasadam. And maybe if they're fortunate, they can hear the holy name. If someone cannot understand that Paramatma is guiding them, then obviously they don't have enough pious activities for Krishna to give them the intelligence to understand that. If they don't understand that everyone has come from an original source, an original person who must have all the opulence that we have, plus unlimitedly more, the source has to be equal, but probably much greater than its products. So one cannot understand then that we're persons because our father and mother were persons. And they were persons because their father and mother was a person. So the original father and mother, they must also be persons. From rocks, we don't find people coming, generally speaking, unless you take some chemical, and then you might imagine like that. But sane, sober persons understand that the original father and mother must also be persons like we are. Otherwise, how do we become persons? So this is basic knowledge, but it will be judged if we understand it by how much we become an instrument for Krishna, how much we take it seriously, so that, as Krishna says, tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gachantnyapana avritim jnanani dutta kalmashaha. One's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed by complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight in the path of self-realization. And what do we realize? We realize by doing this process, just what Krishna says, that he's in everyone's heart, and that in everyone's heart there's a soul, an individual soul, along with a super soul. That's the beginning of actually self-realization. Now, people who don't understand that and don't act according to it, they're considered to be on the lowest level. Those who accept it by experience, but have not quite realized it, they're on the intermediate platform. And those who have experienced it to a large degree and are acting on it constantly, they're considered to be uttama. That's the platform of nishta in this case, liberation from the material concept of life. Unalloyed, uninterrupted service to Krishna. But that's uttama by faith. That's the platform where Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nishoshiti Nakankshiti Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Lavate Param. That when one comes to the platform of Brahma Bhuta, realizing that we're souls, one becomes joyful, Prasanatma. And the symptom is he no longer hankers or laments about anything. And another important symptom, he sees everyone and all living entities as bodies, and within the bodies, he sees that there are souls along with the super soul. And therefore, he knows how to act appropriately towards the different circumstances and the different audience, but he doesn't forget that he's interacting with Krishna's eternal servants and with Krishna, and acts on that level also. So that's called nishta. Or in this place, this particular verse, it explains uttama, kanishta, and madhyama according to faith. Above that, there's faith, there's attachment to Krishna. After one comes to the platform of Brahma Bhuta, then the platform becoming attached to Krishna is there, because one becomes conscious of Krishna. So it goes from experiencing Krishna, which we may do even on any platform, experiencing happiness and pleasure in association with Krishna. Even if we think prasadam is better than ordinary food, that's also some attachment to Krishna. But it's mixed with other desires. So on the platform of nishta, the attachment to Krishna is not mixed with other material desires. Other material desires may be present, but one does not take them so seriously. On the platform of ruchi, then every time we chant Hare Krishna, we can experience Krishna's presence. And one feels pleasure in the different varieties of Krishna consciousness. In one sense, on that platform, one's relationship with everyone is very nice, because everyone is very nice. If we're nice to others, generally speaking, they'll be nice to us. And even if they're not nice to us, everyone is seen as a representative of Krishna, helping us advance in devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj was not disturbed by his father because he understood that his father was an instrument helping him become more absorbed in Krishna consciousness. When Ambarish Maharaj was attacked by Durvasa Muni, he did not become disturbed by Durvasa Muni's activities, but closed his eyes and meditated more intensely on Krishna. Similarly, when the Pandavas, headed by Queen Kunti, were put into many difficulties, they appreciated it because it helped them remember Krishna more. So that's the platform of ruchi. Everything is, or nishta also, everything is seen in relation to Krishna, and it becomes very pleasurable, all one's activities. On the platform of asakti, one is always remembering Krishna's pastimes, both internally, as Krishna displayed them as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna in Vrindavan, or in different incarnations, or externally, he sees the whole world as being an interaction between Krishna, the soul, and the different energies that Krishna has. He doesn't see anyone or anything apart from Krishna and Krishna's desire to bring the conditioned souls back to the spiritual world. Therefore, he sees Krishna's mercy everywhere. On the platform of bhava, uttama, by attachment, one actually develops one's normal feelings towards Krishna in devotion and love. And one becomes overwhelmed by how wonderful and beautiful Krishna is and how wonderful and beautiful Krishna's devotees are. And one can actually feel the love and the interchanges between Krishna and all his devotees on the spiritual platform. And therefore, as when we hear Krishna book, Mother Jasoda, how lovingly she takes care of Krishna, or others, how they're, whether it's the Srimati Radharani or Sudama or Krishna's servants, and we appreciate them. So in the same way, one will see everyone is engaged in Krishna's service on the Uttama Adhikari platform and aspire to become Krishna's servant. So we have 20 minutes. I'll read some of the purport here. First, I'll ask, Krishna, as far as I can understand, Krishna is bringing up this particular verse in Prabhupada's purport. So before we can dance, first we have to learn how to walk. So before we come to the platform of attachment for Krishna, first we have to become liberated from our material concepts. At the present time, most devotees are conflicted in the Hare Krishna movement. It's like you have one foot on the land and one foot on the boat. And the boat's going out to sea, and you have to make a choice. Am I going to jump on the boat or am I going to jump on the land? Otherwise, it's going to be very unpleasant if you have one foot on a boat that's going out to sea and you want to maintain one foot on the land. So as we're practicing Krishna consciousness, we have one foot in Krishna consciousness and one foot in material existence. So Krishna is pointing out that it's better that we make a decision before the boat goes out, which we want to be on. We have to choose something, the land or the boat. Prabhupada's purport, the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is the most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is a complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Itatara mula nishechinena tripdyanti tatskanda bujo prashaka pranoha rascha yatendriyanam tatayava sarvahanam atuteja. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. So we have to understand that the standard of faith that's being talked about here, this is what we have to come to. It's not that we're on that platform. We have to come to that platform. It's the development of faith. As Krishna will point out in another verse, Agyas Shasradanas cha samshayatma vinashyati namnyam lokasti na paro na sukham samshayatmana. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures go to ruin and perish. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. And the Purple Prabhupada points out that there are a class of people in the world, which are probably the majority, who have no idea what scripture is. They're almost like animals. And although we find that people may confess a certain amount of faith, even in religions, but actually they have no idea what the religious philosophy is. They were born into a family, and therefore they identify themselves as Muslim or Christian or Jew, but it's just another identification with the body. Nothing really. They don't know who God is. They don't know what his desires are. They have very little knowledge of anything spiritual. On the other hand, some people actually read their scriptures, like we may read Shastra, taking ideally Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, but they really have no faith in the words. Others have faith in the words, and they even practice the words very strictly, but they don't have faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, they don't perform any devotional service to Krishna. So all these people are considered to be faithless. The worst, of course, are those who are like animals. They have no faith in anything, any scripture. They only eat, sleep, mate, and defend, nothing higher. They don't even know that they're not their body, what to speak of the fact that they're Krishna's eternal servant. Now we want to develop faith, ultimately, that Krishna is God, and that we should dedicate ourselves completely in Krishna's service. This is what Prabhupada explains. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are three divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the third class, there are those who have no faith. Even if they're officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it's very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive, and as soon as they're economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their own old ways again. It's only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one is well versed in the literatures of devotional service, has obtained the stage of firm faith, is called the first-class person in Krishna consciousness. Assimilation of the philosophy. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna bhakti, or service to Krishna, is the best course, and in good faith they've taken it up. This is uttama. This is madhyam by faith. Thus they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but one in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there's no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency towards karma yoga and jnana yoga. Sometimes they are disturbed, but as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second class or first class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into three stages. and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First class attachment, second class attachment, and third class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. That's from Nishta to Prema. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it's simply eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. So let me just read something short here from the Nectar of Devotion, Chapter 3, Eligibility for Pure Devotional Service. So this is what Prabhupada says about Uttama. Vangalata, Devidas, you do have Nectar of Devotion there?
Yes, I do, Maharaj, but because you didn't point exactly what page, or I will figure it out, I guess, on a whim.
No, I'll tell you right now what it is. It's Chapter 3.
Okay, one
Eligibility for Pure Devotional Service, and it's the third paragraph.
Nectar преданности, chapter 3, third, 1, 2, 3. Преданность. I found it.
Moja 3 classe. Devotees may be divided into 3 classes. Devotee in the first or uppermost class is described as follows. He is very expert in the study of relevant scriptures. He is also expert in putting forward arguments in terms of those scriptures. He can very nicely present conclusions with perfect discretion and can consider the ways of devotional service in a decisive way. He understands perfectly that the ultimate goal of life is to attain to the transcendental loving service of Krishna. And he knows that Krishna is the only object of worship and love. This first class devotee is one who has strictly followed the rules and regulations under the training of a bona fide spiritual master, and has sincerely obeyed him in accord with the revealed scriptures. Thus, being fully trained to preach and become a spiritual master himself, he is considered first class. The first class devotee never deviates from the principles of higher authority, and he attains firm faith in the scriptures by understanding with all reasoning and arguments. We speak of arguments and reason. It means arguments and reasoning on the basis of revealed scriptures. The first class devotee is not interested in dry, speculative methods meant for wasting times. In other words, one who has obtained a mature determination in the matter of devotional service can be accepted as a first class devotee. So that's the example of that is the 4 Kumaras. The second class devotee has been defined by the following symptoms. He's not very expert in arguing on the strength of revealed scriptures, but has firm faith in the objective. The purport of this description is that the second class devotee has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service unto Krishna, but he may sometimes fail to offer arguments and decisions on the strength of revealed scriptures to an opposing party. But at the same time, he still is undaunted within himself as to his decision that Krishna is the supreme object of worship. The neophyte or the third class devotee is one whose faith is not strong and who at the same time does not recognize the decision of the revealed scripture. The neophyte's faith can be changed by someone with strong arguments or by an opposite decision. Unlike the second class devotee, who also cannot put forward arguments and evidences from the scriptures, but still has all faith in the objective, the neophyte has no firm faith in the objective. Thus, he is called a neophyte devotee. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions?
I have.
Of course, Nigurna Das. If the question is relevant to the discussion, I'll be happy to answer it. Or else
I don't think it's so much. It's more about something more in devotional life.
Well, hopefully the answer is about something in devotional life.
Yeah. I was thinking like when we sing songs like that express a lot of sadness on the absence of Krishna, and acharyas like Narottam Das Thakur sing Aha Prabhu Nityananda Doya Ipabalo Kanakore Ami Boro Duki. So it's very deep.
When that day be mine, my fences ceasing, haste for the name increasing. Oh, when that day be mine.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I was more like thinking, sometimes we don't have this understanding of who is, I don't have the deep, that deep emotion. And then if you have like, start to sing, I'm very depressed, then it can just be more like a negative auto suggestion for you, because you're not there, you know.
Yes.
That's what I want to ask.
Yes. So these devotees are singing not necessarily that we understand what they're singing. Therefore, sometimes we should try to at least not blindly accept nor blindly reject what they're saying. We should understand that we may not understand, but devotional service should be a joyful process. The residents of Vrindavan, when they're feeling separation from Krishna, they're in total ecstasy. There's no unlimited pleasure. There's no sense, there's no question of any material pain. But our hankering and lamentation is over material objects. And therefore, when we hanker, we suffer. And when we lament, we suffer. But in the spiritual world, when you hanker for Krishna, you're in bliss. And when you feel separation from Krishna and lamentation, you're also in bliss. There's unlimited pleasure in both. So if we don't understand that, then just read Bhagavad Gita and Nectar of Instruction and other books like that, Nectar of Devotion. And then gradually we'll be able to understand it. What it means to hanker for Krishna and what it means to lament over not being Krishna consciousness as compared to hankering for material things and lamenting that we don't have them. And that's what we're trying to experience and learn. Parthasarthi Das.
Thank you, Mars.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for that. Like, uh, I want to go back to the example of the two boats, one foot in the land and one foot in the boat. So basically, I can see myself in that in some regard. So regarding the types of devotees, what kind of devotees, the one who have one foot in the land and one foot in the boat, is the second class or a completely canista? And if so, what's the hope to proceed? Because either I have to give up completely the spiritual life because you mentioned that we have to choose, or otherwise surrender completely to Krishna, even to the extent of being too hard to myself. So I really don't understand how to proceed.
Well, let's say the boat is moving slowly out and we have to make a decision whether we want to put our foot more on the boat or more on the land. That's our decision every moment. So sometimes we decide I'm going to put my foot more on the boat, and then the next moment we may decide, well, maybe the land would be more safe. So it's a very slow moving boat. And the boat is such that this is a devotional boat. So life after life, we can have our boat change our stance on the boat. But ultimately, when we make the decision to put both feet on the boat, and then the boat will just take us back to the spiritual world. In the meantime, we have to go back life after life with our feet more or less on one side or the other.
Thanks so much, Guru Maharaj. Really encouraging.
Thank you. Generally speaking, by the process of devotional service, in the course of this lifetime or other future lifetimes, we'll decide to put our foot more and more on the boat, and eventually we'll put our foot completely on the boat, feet on the boat, and the boat will take us across the material ocean back to the lotus feet of Krishna. Anything else? Okay, we can stop there. Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada
Jai.
Ki Jai, Gaur
Jai.
Premanande.
Hari.
Haribol.
His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj
Hare
ki
Krishna.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki jai.
Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai.
Thank you so much. See you soon, Guru Maharaj.